touring paratrooper show, an accident-prone private, and an angry sergeant. Welcome everyone. This week we're going back to 1952 for a semi-musical comedy called Jumping Jacks, starring Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, and Mona Freeman. And this is directed by Norman Tarogue. Our story begins this week at the Brent's Club, a nightclub that showcases variety acts. Doing their army camp routine is singer Betsy Carter, played by Mona Freeman, and brave soldier Hap Smith, played by Jerry Lewis. After the show, Hap gets a telegram marked confidential. Proceed at once to Fort Belding for important patriotic mission. You see, United States Army Corporal Chick Allen, played by Dean Martin, is a paratrooper preparing a show with other soldiers. Arriving at the main post by bus, Chick explains, General Timmons is unhappy with the quality of past military shows and is threatening to eliminate them, which is why Chick invited his former partner Hap to help out. Not enlisted, Hap has to pass off as Private Dogface Dolan, while the real Dogface goes into hiding. Putting on a trick army suit, and with Dolan's pass, Hap gets past the main gate, only to bump into Sergeant McCluskey, who wants an explanation of all his medals. The show must go on, and does. In fact, it impresses the general so much that he arranges the new show to include Hap and begin touring other camps. Fearing a court-martial, Hap is now stuck and won't be seeing civilian life. Sergeant McCluskey gets assigned to the boys, and Hap undergoes paratrooper training to keep up the scheme, but becomes very accident-prone. Sneaking away to call Betsy, Hap tries to explain that he has to break up their act and won't be able to make Broadway. Leaving an upset Betsy behind, the paratroopers head by train to their next camp while trying to hide the real Dogface along the way. Arriving at the station, Hap sneaks away to see Betsy, only to be followed by Chick, who is attracted to Betsy, but has to drag Hap back to camp. The new show is a big hit, Chick's in love, and Hap is still accident-prone as paratrooper training gets raised to new heights. So, does Betsy change her act to include Chip and Hap? Does the real Dogface get caught shaving and become court-martialed? Or do some fancy war maneuvers promote Hap into the envy of all his buddies as their new corporal? Released June 11, 1952, the original story, Ready, Willing, and 4F, was written during World War II by Robert Lees and Fred Rinaldo and acquired by Paramount Pictures. The New York Times reviewed stated, Jumping Jacks is ripping and roaring fun for Dean and Jerry fans, and film historian Leonard Maltin considered it a good opportunity for plenty of sight gags when they join a military paratroop squad, classic comedy from one of the best comedy duos. Yes, it is, and I did another film from the comedy duos on my channel. Please click the link below for The Caddy from 1953. And our trivia question this week, was the screenplay updated by someone very familiar with Martin and Lewis? Was the screenplay updated by someone very familiar with Martin and Lewis? So a little more history and the answer to our trivia question right after this. Principal photography for our film took place at the United States Army Airborne School, making the Army Airborne School the subject of this week's history. So, the United States Army Airborne School, widely known as Jump School, conducts the basic paratrooper or military parachutist training for the United States Armed Forces. In 1940, the War Department approved the formation of a test platoon for airborne infantry under the direction and control of the Army's Infantry Board. A test platoon of volunteers was organized from Fort Benning's 29th Infantry Regiment, and the 2nd Infantry Division was directed to conduct tests to develop reference data and operational procedures for air-transported troops. First Lieutenant William T. Ryder volunteered as the platoon leader, and Lieutenant James A. Bassett as assistant leader, and 48 enlisted men were selected from a pool of 200 volunteers. The test platoon was moved to the Safe Parachute Company at Hightstown, New Jersey, using parachute drop towers obtained from the 1939 New York World's Fair. The 250-foot free towers proved to be effective. Drops from the tower added realism and proved to the troops that their parachutes would function safely. Impressed, the Army purchased 2 more and erected them on what is now Eubanks Field at Fort Benning, and today 3 of the original 4 towers are still in use. Parachute landing training was often conducted by jumping from PT platforms and from the back of moving trucks to allow the trainees to experience the shock of landing. Less than 45 days after it was formed, members of the test platoon made their first jump from a Douglas B-18 Bolo bomber over Lawson Field on August 16, 1940. Lieutenant Ryder and Private William N. King became the first officer and enlisted man to make an official jump as paratroopers in the United States Army. And on August 29th, a platoon made the first platoon mass jump held in the United States. Amazing. And a quick note, Brigadier General Frank Dorn, Deputy Chief of the U.S. Army's Information Office, praised jumping jacks as something that would contribute to troop morale within the Army. I think it would boost morale for everyone. Actually, I hope you get a chance to watch this one. And here's the answer to our trivia question this week. Was the screenplay updated by someone very familiar with Martin and Lewis? Yes. The screenplay for our film was updated for Martin and Lewis by songwriter and screenwriter Herbert Baker. Baker would go on to write several other films for the team, including Scared Stiff in 1953 and Artists and Models in 1955. Baker wrote Don't Give Up the Ship in 1959 for Jerry Lewis and worked on Lewis's television show. In 1965, Baker wrote The Dean Martin Show, and when Martin agreed to star in and co-produce a series of Matt Helm spy films, Baker wrote the song parodies for The Silencers in 1966, wrote Murder's Row in 1966, and wrote the third Matt Helm film, The Ambushers, in 1967. And yes, I have all these films, including the last one, The Wrecking Crew from 1968. It stars Sharon Tate. A big thank you goes out to all my viewers and subscribers. Thanks very much for tuning in. Don't forget to click the link below to watch Jumping Jacks in its entirety. We'll see you soon.